Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Jesse's Occupational Awareness Channel. We're continuing on with our TDCJ War Stories series. This morning, we're going to talk about psychological effects of working in the penitentiary. Now, this has by far been the most requested topic from the viewers that enjoy this channel. People have asked different ways about it, but it all stems to what are the effects psychologically of that career? Well, disclaimer, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just an active duty Coast Guardsman, and this is going to be from my perspective. Everyone's going to be different. The individuals that made a successful career out of it, I'm sure they were able to deal just fine. For the ones who didn't, made other choices in life, it's going to affect everybody differently because everybody's mental state is, of course, going to be different. So, as they say, individual experiences will vary. This is going to be from my perspective. Now, this isn't going to be all the bad effects. There are a lot of them, unfortunately, but I'm going to include some of the good ones as well to kind of brighten up the video, seeing how it is an absolutely beautiful day here in sunny Hampton, Virginia. So, let's talk about some of the good effects of it. First thing that comes to mind, there's a sense of pride and ownership in knowing that you're part of the system that's helping keep these guys, really bad guys, behind the bars, as they say. Now, there weren't bars at TDC, at least at the Styles where I worked. It was metal sliding doors. The older buildings would have bars, but sorry, getting off on a rant. So there was a good feeling about it. It was rewarding knowing that they were kept out of society where their actions had proven that they couldn't be a viable member of society. So there was that. There was a good feeling that there was some good benefits from the job. Free food, if you wanted it. I did. Free uniforms, the benefits package for those that had family. You were taking care of your family. So there was a good sense that you were working toward, a viable career. Plus, you were also building a retirement. So there was a good feeling in if you could think that far down the road that when you were done, you would have your pension plan that was going to take care of you. So there was some comfort in with that. Other than that, that's kind of the good stuff right there. Now, everyone's going to have their own perspective of it. So let's talk about some of the negative psychological effects. First and foremost, once the reality sets in that you're surrounded by nothing but bad guys, it can make you a little bit uneasy. These individuals, because of their conduct in society, because of the charges, because of what they were tried and convicted of, have been removed from society, placed in this big building, and told, now play nice. And their numbers are in the thousands. I think Styles at the time I worked there was around 2,900. They were set up for, the buildings were called 2250s, designed for 2,250 inmates. Well, the numbers were way larger than that. So these were all bad dudes. Then once you realize not a single one of them likes corrections officers. Not one. That doesn't mean they're all violent towards COs, but I guarantee you there wasn't a single individual there that liked corrections officers. They had to put up with them, they had to tolerate us, but there was no like. Others harbored an absolute hatred for us. Just absolute hatred. If they could have gotten away with stabbing, killing, throwing us off the tier, and it wouldn't have affected their status, they would have. So, the realization, it takes a little while. It did for me. Once I had the realization that I was locked in this building with murderers, child molesters, convicted rapists, chronic drug users, there's drugs in the penitentiary, there's alcohol, it's readily available. It's brought into them, they make it homemade, it's there. It's all over the place. So it can definitely make you uneasy. Now, the effect that it had for me, it gave me a distrust and a very uncomfortable feeling being around other people in society. In the Coast Guard, we do a lot of law enforcement. Now, individual experiences will vary with that as well. I've predominantly done law enforcement in my Coast Guard career. And part of our self defense tactics, we're taught what's called the reactionary gap. That's a distance we teach anywhere from 4 to 6 feet that you're supposed to keep from individuals. So if they decide to go on the attack, it kind of lessens that element of surprise, gives you maybe that 1 to 2 second what that something's about to happen so you can protect yourself. When you're surrounded by individuals and you're in close quarters, you don't have that luxury. And it can make you're kind of, I was always feeling like I needed to be on the defense. I wasn't a popular CO, not by any means. I did my job, I wrote my cases, I enforced the rules. If you're doing your job, offenders won't like you. Other COs won't like you either. So, first and foremost, there's the mistrust of society and feeling like you always need to be on the defense. It can also cause a lot of anxiety. You work a lot of long hours, and there wasn't a whole lot of home time. Yeah, we had the 4 on, 4 off. Well, your first day off, that was usually spent sleeping, trying to rest and recuperate. Your second and third day, got to take care of some home business, cut the grass, get some groceries. You had 2 days to take care of it. The last day, there was almost a depressed feeling like, oh shit, here we go. Back to the bullshit again for the next 4 days. You wake up that morning, 3:30, time to get going. Another 4 days of dealing with these dudes. So the 4 days off, while it sounds like a lot, it was really only about maybe 2 days to yourself. Then you were left with your thoughts with the other ones. Not every day was a bad day in the penitentiary. A lot of days you just kind of went in, did your thing, dealt with what they had going on, and then you left. Other days, you see a lot of bad things. I was escorting an offender one day somewhere, and he was on a walker, and he went into a seizure. Falls over. If he faked it, he was damn good at faking it, because when he fell over, he's twitching, he's flopping, he pissed himself. I got all that on me. So just seeing these guys act and their just the problems that they had. I wasn't a bad CO in the fact that I cared for the guys, but you can't show favoritism to them, if that makes sense. I didn't word that very well. I'm trying to think of a better way of wording it. I wanted the best for these guys. I wanted them to have what they were supposed to have, nothing more, but I wanted to have what they were supposed to have. But the way that they would just act up all day and lash out and yell and holler and hated us, it made it tough. There were days you wanted to see bad things. I wanted to see bad things happen to these guys just because of the way they were acting. So I started to develop a bad image of inmates, and the rehabilitation programs, they weren't working, at least where I was. So I developed a very negative attitude toward any kind of rehabilitation programs for these guys because it didn't seem like it was making any kind of a difference. Probably one of the worst effects would be language, the way we talk. You can't go in there and be all yes sir and no sir to these guys. They weren't raised that way. That's not how they were in the streets. That's not how they are in the penitentiary. It's bitch this, hoe ass, motherfucker that. Just, man, you just a hoe ass CO. You bitch ass boss man. That was usually my name. And that language kind of carries over. You try not to cuss at inmates, but let's face it, that's the language that they speak. So those words start to come out more and more. You start talking like them, plus the officers that I worked around, we came from all different walks of society, different walks of life, different backgrounds. You kind of become the individuals that you're around. And then you take that shit home with you. Now, she wasn't my wife at the time, but she did live through a lot of what I went through at the penitentiary, and you start to talk to your family that way. I remember a time I was over at my mom's house and I was dishing something out of the stove. I don't remember what it was. And she came up beside me. I don't remember what she was getting ready to do, but she came up beside me. I looked back and said, "Get the fuck back," to my mom. She eyeballed me, stepped back. I wasn't me. That wasn't Jesse Carter. That was CO3 Carter. And it took a little while to realize what I said. I put my head down and just kind of shook my head. I said, I'm sorry." She said, "Baby, I think that place is starting to affect you." And I said, yeah, it really is. So where I'm going with that, when you bring stuff like that home with you, it makes you feel like you're still in that place. Like you never really left it, because you bring the language home with you, and you can start to feel secluded, almost ostracized. I was spending a lot less time with friends. Days off were just there to relax, recuperate. Anytime I went to the store, Walmart, to get my groceries, or the mall to go shopping, it was really tough being around people. If I went to go down an aisle and it had a lot of people down it, I'd go to the next aisle and walk down it, check it again, see if it's starting to clear out, good. Or I'd purposely position the shopping cart in between me and other people. I couldn't have people around me. Somebody behind me, big no-go. Now, I couldn't go off on people in the store because they wouldn't have understand my circumstance and situation, and that would have pretty much made me the bad guy. So I had to be real careful when I went shopping. I found myself, after a while, a lot of times, going to the 24-hour Walmart at midnight. That's when there would be less people. I didn't want to be around them. We tried to go to a movie one time, went into the theater, saw just the lobby packed with people, and I said, let's go do something else. And she was a little bit upset because it was a movie that we had wanted to see. I don't remember which one it was, but I said, no, we're not going in there. Or if we go to a restaurant and it was overly packed, wouldn't go to it. We'd end up either going somewhere else or just coming back home. So there was this fear of being around people, because when you're on the job, you have your tools with you. You have your pepper spray. I had my partner. You have backup, except for the time I was locked in with that other individual in the office. You had a radio. You had your picket boss. So there was backup around you. When I was off the job, no, it was just me. And it got to be feeling very, very uncomfortable. A lot of times it was hard to sleep. I found myself a lot of times taking melatonin to help me go to sleep. And when I would sleep, it was waking up every 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on how bad the shift had been. I remember one particular shift. We took one of the guys out of the cells and he slipped away from us. You'd have your hand on their arm and you'd escort them down the tier. This individual got away from us, took off running down the tier. Now, that surprised us, so it took us a second to react, get our speed up, started chasing after the guy. He was in bare feet, boxers, handcuffs behind his back, turned the corner, went to run down the stairs, slipped, fell down the stairs, busted himself up. It looks just like you see in the movies when they go falling down the stairs, except in real life, bones crack, blood comes out. When we got to the guy down at the bottom of the stairs, his face was all smashed up, his nose was smashed over, this shoulder was really odd looking because it'd been dislocated. Knees and feet were scraped up. These were metal stairs that the guy had fallen down. My partner's got a hand on him. At this point, he's thrashing and flopping like a fish. Blood's coming out of his face. He's thrashing and flopping around. My partner's trying to hold him down. By this point, the other inmates that hadn't seen what had happened, they look out their cells and they see two COs on top of this hand restrained guy flopping around, and they instantly think that we jumped him. So they're beating and banging on the doors, kicking, hollering. Again, sounds like a concert hall. Picket boss is on the radio calling in for the supervisor. We're trying to keep the guy restrained and calm. Supervisor comes in, we get the guy up, get him on down to the infirmary. Supervisor and a utility boss takes over because we couldn't leave the pod. We had to be there to man that area. And the whole rest of the shift was just a disaster. I had blood on my hands. I wore gloves. I had blood on my hands, cuff of my sleeves, my shirt where the guy had slung his face and his face hit me in the chest. So when you kind of look down at yourself and you got another human being's blood on you, it can be a little unnerving. And these guys, most of them had some kind of a communicable disease. Styles unit is a medical unit. Most of them were infectious with something. You couldn't find out what because HIPAA law protects these individuals' privacy. But you knew that anytime you had a bodily fluid on you from these individuals, it could have something. HIV, full-blown AIDS, hepatitis, any one of the strings, just something. They were all on medications. So when you look down and you see blood all over your uniform, everyone's going to react differently. It might seem, oh, cool, got this guy's blood. Well, other times it's like, Jesus, why did that guy even do that? I took you out of the cell. I was just trying to take you to the day room so you could relax and have some chill time. And you break away and damn near kill yourself. And here I am trying to take care of you. Now all the other inmates think that I just beat this guy up, and now they hate me even more. First couple that we tried to take out of the cell, they started fighting with us. It just made for a real bad day. And then I remember going home thinking, God, can I even come back to this place? Lucky it was on our Friday, our fourth day. Didn't matter what day of the week it was. We called that day our Friday. And the inmates would always, they knew what our schedule was. They kept track of it. And on our Friday, they always tried to act the worst to make your days off as miserable as possible, because for them that was fun. And I remember going home thinking, God, can I even do this? Got home and rinsed the blood out of the sleeves, I had gloves on still, scrubbed the blood off the chest of the shirt, wash it as best I could in hot water, just going, man, where I'm going with that was, at that point I started feeling really burned out, really defeated. How can these guys act like this day in and day out? So there was a very defeated feeling at that point. And then I started to question, man, is the pay even worth it? Once you get those thoughts in your mind, at least for me, it made it tough to go back day after day after day after that. As soon as inmates see you have a defeated feeling like that, they'll just pick at, prod at it, make it worse. They love to see officers not come back in. They'll just, yep, got another one, guys. It was fun for them because they were all bad guys. So that's my take on the psychological effects. For me, it gave me a anxiety feeling of being in public. I had trouble sleeping a lot of times, and just on the alert all the time. And it came and went in waves. On the 4 days that it wasn't really bad like that, it wasn't that bad. I'd have a good 4 days off, do my thing. Other times when it was real bad like that, when I'd get home, my girlfriend at the time would be there. I wouldn't even want to interact with her. Leave me alone. Come up and try to hug me. Hey, nope. Don't touch me. Don't even be around me. I just didn't want to see other human beings, didn't want to hear their voices, because I'd listened to this constant yelling all day long inside. Seg was called the dungeon. Inside this dungeon, and the sound would just bounce off the walls, and I just didn't want to hear another human being's voice, even my future spouse at the time. If we would have plans for the 2 days, no, I just kind of rather stay home, drink some beer, and watch a little TV. And by watching TV, the volume down way low, kind of just zoned out. So I'm sorry if this video come off real grim and dark. I can see why a lot of COs don't do videos like this. Just talking about this stuff kind of takes me back to some of the dark times and some of the bad times that I did have there. And just talking about it right now is making me feel kind of, depressed almost in a way. But you guys wanted to hear about it. I want to give you guys what y'all want. That's the whole purpose of me doing these videos. I hope it hasn't been too dark and grim. I hope it answers some questions about the effects of it. If anyone has specific questions, feel free to fire away. And again, everybody's experiences are going to be differently. I could have 3 other COs do a video about it, and they're all going to sound differently because we all had different experiences and react differently. But that was my reactions. And there were a lot more, but I just don't have the time really to do the videos about it, nor do I have really the words other than the ones that I've had in this video. So, hope everyone enjoyed the content. Enjoy your Sunday. Take care of each other. Look forward to seeing y'all in the next video.